Hi, and welcome to the Human Side of Business podcast. I'm Ange, MacCabe, CEO and co-founder of Intuitive Performance. I'm a performance coach, HR professional, whole person leadership facilitator, and your host. The Human Side of Business podcast is fueled by the genuine curiosity to understand how personal characteristics and skills can be leveraged to drive individual and team performance, tangible outcomes, and ultimately organizational success within business. Each podcast is devoted to sharing knowledge, expanding our learning edges, and exploring the trends in corporate culture towards growing the emotional intelligence of organizations. I'm so glad you're here. Hi, and a warm welcome to the Elevate Business podcast. Both myself, Ange MacCabe, and Scott Russ are your hosts. We have the pleasure of introducing you to Paul Bellows, the president of Yellow Pencil, a 50-person digital agency working with public sector clients on service automation and content operations. Paul is a member of the Council of Canadian Innovators and an advisor formally and informally to digital leaders at all levels of Canadian government. Paul also hosts the 311 podcast, a series on the leaders in digital government transformation. When not at his desk, Paul is a dad first and occasionally returns to his roots as a singer-songwriter. Welcome, Paul.
It's exciting to be here. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah, likewise. So jumping right in, tell us a little bit more about yourself, your journey as a leader and your company.
Absolutely. So I started the company I currently lead, Yellow Pencil, in 1996. So this is our 26th year. So we've been at it for some time. Thank you. Yeah. And when I started, I had sort of dual ambitions. You know, I had it in my head that I was going to become a professional musician, a touring singer-songwriter, and was moving down the path. I had a record deal with a small label in Seattle, and we had radio play and some albums out, and
cool.
There were sort of the signs of it, but it certainly wasn't a consistent living. So I decided I needed a side hustle, and so I started doing digital work. And around 2001, things were moving on both fronts. I landed some larger clients from a consulting perspective, and also the music was moving forward. And there came this critical moment where I had to decide. I'm here in Canada, so in Northern Canada, in Edmonton. And I had to decide, was I going to move to the US or attempt to legally move to the US to pursue the recording contract, or was I going to stay and operate the digital business that's here in Canada? And I went through an evaluation process and decided that digital business was actually more reliable long-term bet. I'd also love to be in the NHL, but I don't think that's realistic either. So I decided I wasn't really going to make the kind of living that I was interested in or have the kind of career stability doing music. So it's become a hobby, but I started the business and got office and incorporated and did all the things that one does, and started hiring employees around 2001, 2002. That was sort of when we really started to became a grown-up real business with all the outside of just a sort of a sole proprietorship and a consulting business. So I really came into business accidentally. I'd always been somewhat entrepreneurial in what I did. But, having staff, keeping books, having a portfolio of customers. So some of those things were I don't know that it was my initial plan was to start a business and grow business. But over the years, we had success and we hired some really great people who helped ensure that success. And the business started to grow. And so it's been a long, slow journey. I've made every mistake that could be made over the years. So everything I've learned has been through pain and failure. But once if it hurts badly enough, you really try and not do those things twice.
Fair.
So, at this point, we're 50 people. We're a digital agency. We work with public sector and government clients. We come in to sort of solve some of their wicked problems around how they're going to deliver services online, communicate online, building digital platforms. So the work is complex. It's challenging. It's working with government and higher ed. So there's always budget constraints and timeline constraints and capacity constraints. So you really need a high performing team, people who can work collaboratively and who are self-reflective and who work, with others in a situation that can often be really complex, and that means lots of pivots and lots of agility in how we work. So I'm really fortunate to have that team today, and I work directly with the leadership team, who all of those folks report into, and together we make decisions and try and chart our course to ensure that we're successful and that our clients are successful.
That's fantastic. And so, as you continue to evolve with your team, what are some of the major things that you're looking to focus on in 2022?
Yeah, we just got out of a strategic planning meeting this morning, so that's what we're wrestling with right now. We were going to have our strat done by the end of 2021, but we're into this month, and there were just some big questions we wanted to solve. And we're a remote team, and in this fifth wave of the pandemic, which is where we're recording and speaking right now, we've not been doing as much travel. So getting together in person has been harder. There's just a lot more overhead and complexity to getting people together. Some folks have young kids and people in school and not really quite willing to jump on airplanes yet, which is very reasonable. So we've been doing things online and sort of moving slowly. But the questions we're looking at, the word that is really guiding us right now is sustainability. To say, look, in a number of areas, in terms of our people and their mental and emotional well-being. People have been alone a lot. They've been working with others over a distance, working with often brand new clients where you've not really met them and formed some of those normal human bonds you make when you're in a room, or to maybe go tip a glass together after a hard, challenging meeting. So it's been exhausting, quite honestly. Doing creative work, generative work, collaborative work in a purely online context does take a certain amount of energy out. So we recognize that our people are tired. And we do need to make sure they're sustainable long term. We also had a huge rush of business in 2020 as the pandemic rolled in. People said, "Oh, we need to digitize, we need to move." So we had this big wave, and then sort of some of that work spilled over into 2021. And 21 was a challenging financial year for us. 2020 was very successful. 2021 was all the ends of all the big projects we started, and that's sort of in my business. The end of the project is really what's challenging. And we had a lot of projects wrap up in 2021. Then you've got to renew and start new business. So we didn't hit the financial numbers we were looking for in 2021. So we're looking at sustainability in terms of the health of our people, and as well as financially, just making sure that we're making the best possible decisions. We're planning projects start and stop effectively. We're picking the very best projects with our very best clients, and really focused on doing the work that's best for us and best for our clients. And then the third would just be around process and operational stability. So we did have quite a bit of growth through 2020 in terms of headcount, in terms of revenue, in terms of number of clients. So just say, as we grow, do we have the internal processes and the process maturity to support this, this newer size? 50 people isn't a massive company, but it's much bigger than the 35 people we were at the end of 2019. So even those small changes create new realities in terms of how we work together, how we communicate, what are our processes, what are the disciplines that we share together. So those are sort of the three categories, but sustainability is really the theme that we're looking at, so that we can do this. It's the marathon, not a sprint. And sometimes in this digital work, it feels like you're sprinting to the next sprint. And so just really saying, how do we create more calmness, more sustainability? We're evaluating, what about the 4-day work week? Is that a thing that our business can sustain? Can we balance our financial goals with longer weekends for people, more time away from screen, but really just sort of opening the door to see what are all the possibilities of how we can create the most sustainable business possible. And we're also going to look at environmental concerns. We don't run power equipment, but we do have certain operational activities that do have a carbon footprint. Say, how do we make a business that's also environmentally responsible too? So, there's old school sustainability, and there's sort of that original definition too of, is this a business that can exist in the world for, without having an adverse impact?
I like the multifacets that you're looking at, Paul, with your group and your team. And if it's okay, excited to kind of go down a rabbit hole, because you said something, the dynamics, and I'm paraphrasing here, but the dynamics have shifted, so not so much, but have shifted from 30 people to 50 people.
Yeah.
Talk to us more about that in your experience, because I'm always curious. I mean, we're a young outfit as well at Intuitive Performance, and we're scaling with our consultants. And one thing that Scott and I talk about with our consultants is, not guarding, but ensuring that there's, using your word, sustainability with regards to our dynamics, right? Because, you have this certain vibe within your organization whereby, things are going well, you can speak from a place of candor, like you're just really jamming and things are good. And as you grow, kind of how do you keep that type of fostering of an inclusive environment, or aligning with the values that you've worked so hard to create within your organization?
No, it's such an important question, and it's one of those the old chestnut. What got you here won't get you there. That you need to understand what are the inflection points in your business. Where do things change at a cultural level?
Yeah,
and linear growth does create new realities in the business. And I think the first one, so I run a professional services firm. Many folks are in that type of a category. I'm sure it's slightly different in other types of businesses. But in professional services, where it's very team oriented, a lot of client facing work, I think one of the inflection points happens for most, somewhere between 12 and 20 people, in a team. And I think it's linear growth. What happens at 12 to 20 people is, below 12 people, you're a group of humans, maybe in a room together, maybe in a virtual room, but it's very much relationship driven. It's sort of, it's maybe a cult of personality of the leader of the group. Hey, I am going to motivate you. Here's where we're going to go do. Here's what we're doing today. And you can essentially run the business by looking around, having a quick conversation. Maybe you have a daily stand up, maybe you don't. You can really run the business anecdotally. You can say, hey, today we're going to do this. Here's the client that's most important. Hey, don't forget, we got to get invoicing in because it's the third of the month, and our accountant's waiting for the reports. But you can work in a pretty loose format, and in fact, you kind of need to, because you are young and you've just started, and things are forming and norming. And too much process at this point is almost inappropriate. You don't know enough about the business to even create formal process about how you do everything. And you probably are all working on within the business, delivering value, delivering client work, responding to sales requests. Everyone's too busy to sit down and be, if you actually sat down and were too thoughtful about, how do we do invoicing really? What is our philosophy of invoicing? You'd probably go broke asking those questions at that small point too, right? So you just don't have the operational overhead to sit and be too thoughtful. But around 15 people, sort of the midpoint, the thing that happens is, for the employees of the company itself starts to become a personality in the room. The company itself enters the room. And I think as a leader, you'll hear for the first time, someone will say something like, well, I think the company owes me a raise. You say, the company owes you a raise? I'm the company. No. You're the leader of the company, or you're the CEO of the company, or you're my boss. But I've looked around and there are other companies like us. I've noticed we are like other companies. And now the company just sort of enters the room in the conversation. And you need to stop and say, oh, people have a relationship to this business as an employer, and I need to start thinking about, what is this company to them? You may have hired people and given them the salary they asked for, and maybe it's not all the same. And maybe people start to notice, So these sort of the trappings of a real grown-up business start to show up around that point, because people start to feel like, we're no longer sort of that two pizza team, that little, hey, we can all just get together and buy a couple of pizzas and move forward. And, there is a bigger thing going on here. And right. So you start to have to treat at a cultural level, we actually need some policies, and how do you take time off? And, oh my gosh, we need a parental leave policy. We didn't need one before, but our first employee is having a baby, or their partner is having a baby, and we need to accommodate for that. So these things start to show up. And then what happens next is, you need to hire people to do those administrative things. And then that starts to change your cost model, and that starts to create overhead and, people who aren't billable or who aren't doing client facing work. And then you start to have different roles, and, so the company starts to grow. And I think that happens up until about, say 35 people. You're sort of in a slightly chaotic zone where you're keeping up. Around 35 people, that's where you need to start getting your recipes down. Like, okay, now we've hired people where I can't supervise them directly every day. I don't actually see their work, or I'm not in that meeting where there's a client. And we need to start having standards of work and performance here. And so some of those other trappings and structures of the company start to show up there. And especially in the professional services business, that's when you also really need like a market strategy. Like once you're paying 35 mortgages every month or 40 mortgages every month, you need to know where the work is coming from. And you need to know with great certainty, and you need to know with like a clarity of like distance that you didn't have before. Like, you know, a lot of professional services firms can go, you know, like maybe 3-month view of revenue, and that's pretty good. And in 6 weeks, we're going to be busy. Someone hustle or take that client call or like answer that, you know, let's get a couple proposals out to existing customers. Someone get on the phone. You can sort of hustle up the work. But once you have that scale, you know, especially if you're project based in the way you work, you need a long-term market plan, and you need to start to organize the business around what do we do really well. And how do we differentiate from other companies? And that's where the strategic thinking for the business starts to get really, really essential. And you need more people aligned to strategy. You need to know where you're going and how you're going to get there with the level of clarity that you don't necessarily have to have it to maybe 10 to 15 people. So this is some of the experiences that we've had where, you know, where we've grown, kind of how we've had to really change kind of culture and how we operate and how we think. You know, as the organization grows, you know, those are some of the changes that we've noticed.
I think it's a fantastic kind of journey that you described through Yellow Pencil, I could assume, as to the different stages that kind of companies face as they continue to grow and what that looks like. And I think, Ange will be able to speak on the HR side of things more than I can, but we see the same thing with organizations around that 15 to 30 people, where they might not have the kind of human resources or the people and culture systems in place. And people are starting to leave and they don't really know why, or they don't have the onboarding programs to set people up for success. And so, you know, implementing those things can really make a big difference in making that jump from that 15 to 30 or 30 to 45. Which I think great.
Yeah, you're right, Scott. I think what's also true is you probably don't have the expertise and the capacity inside your organization to build the business structures that you need, right? Like that's where like external consultants start to become so essential to your success. And picking the right external consultants, and a lot of it is people need to be able to work with you, the person you actually are. You know, you know, so you got to really test those relationships and start finding people, you know, that aren't just there as window dressing as a consultant. Oh, we have an external CFO. Are they helping you make good decisions, right? Or are they just giving you a report each month, you know?
Right.
And are they worth what you're paying them for? You know, like for those consulting. And a lot of that is, do they have the right mix? Do they understand your business? And do they understand who you are? And a lot of it is just knowing yourself.
I like where you're going with that. And like what we're seeing in today's landscape, you know, where we're going into the 5th, 6th wave, you know, is a lot of businesses, and I'm kind of going again down a different rabbit hole here, but you said something really interesting in the sense of the value of, you know, what, if they're not frontline creating revenue for your business, what is the actual value that your providers are giving you if you're using third party or internal? And, you know, being in the HR world, that has always been a vein. Because as you know, as a business owner, HR would be a cost line item, right? It's, you know, it's not driving revenue for you. It's not creating innovation. It's not building out a strategy that you can see tangibly. It's kind of working behind the scenes, both at the leadership table and with your team members. And so that's where we take a lot of pride in Intuitive Performance, especially, is because it's about providing that value and keeping your finger on the pulse. And to your point, I really liked the fact that you said you have to know the people that are in the leadership seats. It's not just about knowing their job, but knowing those people, because then you can help assist with regards to alignment with around programs. And I would anticipate the same would be at Yellow Pencil. You really have to understand your clients and their voice to ensure that you're delivering on, you know, the projects that you've kind of signed up for. I guess an off-color question to ask is like, you know, how do you really go about assisting people in understanding the value when it comes to roles that aren't directly driving your profits?
It is so hard because you get stuck on the relationship a lot of times. This isn't my words, but someone years ago, someone said this to me, and I loved it. I've retained it in my brain somewhere in one of those closets where you just keep like, oh yeah. They said there are people that become office furniture. Like they're there. They feel like they're part of the space. Like they're always there. They're familiar. They're comfortable. But what are they doing, and how are they actually driving value in the business? Does that work need to be done? Is that work essential to the business? Is that work actually happening? Or people can get into a get busy mode really easy. You're keeping busy, and there's always something happening. But is it essential? Is it providing value? And I think you need, again, it sounds a little less. Smaller companies are very relationship driven, and you start, it's hard because relationships are so much the capital that you hold in any business, really. People's social connections are as powerful as their job descriptions and their compensation model. People leave when they don't like people, they don't leave often because, sometimes compensation is just off base, or you're in a job, or you're just not feeling successful. But most often people leave because the social bonds aren't strong enough, or there's negative social bond. Like they actually dislike their manager or the team they work on. That's often why people leave work, So relationships are essential, but you also have to look at the strategic value and the operational value of those people in those roles. And sometimes you just, the hardest thing is to look at that person you really care about, you really like, and say, the thing that you're doing here is not advancing, the strategy of the business, or the operations of the business. You might have to either change or grow or go. Those are the options here. And some people are not capable of growing or interested in growing. I think everyone's capable of growing, but some people are just not maybe at a life moment where they're ready to grow. And some people don't really want to change what they do, and then sometimes they have to go, and that's always really hard. Sometimes you don't see it in time, and things can get really toxic too, and other people can start to get frustrated, and those people can really harm your culture. If people look around and say, well, so and so doesn't have to work that hard and they get an executive salary, why do I have to work so hard? That they can be really damaging to the entire productivity. So especially at the leadership level, it's so easy for people to turn into office furniture. And so you just need to understand how you're assessing the value of your team and what they're contributing. And it's hard because, again, they're humans, and all of our biases are tuned to want to be in an effective relationship that's conflict free. And that feels like conflict. Hey, maybe you're not doing what I need you to do. So yeah, I think knowing that aspect and really understanding your people. But I think just to flip it a little bit, it is, you have to know your people too. Like the relationship is also kind of the way.
Yeah.
Well, what motivates you? What energizes you? What kind of work do you like to do? How do you show up at a meeting? How comfortable are you with your voice being heard in a moment of conflict or dialogue? Because if you don't know that, then you're gonna lose the maximum value of your people. If you get people to a situation where they, as the human they are, can thrive, I think that's the goal here, and that's team building is what that is. Helping everyone just be in the right seat with the right role and operating culturally, in a way that energizes them and where they can bring their best self.
Exactly. Yeah. I like where you're going with this. There's so many strands there, Paul, in the sense of, team dynamics and behaviors and strength building. I think that's amazing. And it drives me to be more curious. How has kind of looking inwardly to yourself from a leadership perspective, Paul, how have you grown with your company?
Oh, like I said, joking a little bit, but not entirely. You fail, and you decide you don't want to fail in that particular way again.
Yeah.
And they're usually like how I communicate, how I said that thing, how I let my own ego about what I wanted the business to be, mask like a reality of what customers were actually wanting and willing to buy. You fall in love with your own ideas, and you want to be the idea person. And sometimes you have the wrong idea and you hold on to it way too long, or communicate it poorly, or pick something that's a little bit more about a vanity project than about actually solving a problem in the world. And those things can be really dangerous for you. But I think, I'm a meditator. I'm not a great meditator, but I'm an aspiring meditator, let's say. But I think mindfulness and just pausing to know yourself, calming the mind, being able to assess, how did I do in that meeting? Reflection on what just happened. Did that meeting go the way I hoped? What did I do to maybe, if it didn't go the way I hoped, that conversation didn't produce the outcome, what was my accountability for that? Did I show up angry? Did I look distracted on screen? I have a big multitasking problem, and I know it's like nothing's more frustrating for my leadership team than when we're on a web meeting and they're telling me something that's important, and they can see my eyes not focused on the camera, focused on Slack, or distracting, or my fingers start to move. I know that's just toxic. That's a toxic behavior of mine that just shows disrespect. And it seems so trivial, but it's so harmful to the people I work with trusting me every day. Just being able to be focused and being present in the meeting. It's all these small things for you as a leader, and then there are big things like my financial understanding of how to operate a business, my ability to make good decisions, my strategic planning skills, and the tooling I bring to strategic planning. Those are sort of the big, the knowledge. I find way more of the things that impact my ability as a leader are the small things where I look distracted when someone's telling me something important. I don't listen actively to an employee who's kind of pouring their heart out about a problem they're having at work. It's those are the things that often are most harmful. You can hire for financial acumen, but or you can compensate your deficiency in an area. You can hire a strategic planner to help you. Hire HR people. You're really working on becoming a better people leader, though. That's the biggest skill that you need to grow, I think.
I really appreciate the vulnerability you're bringing here, Paul, and kind 100%. Of identifying those specific things. And, we can see it because it can be so challenging sometimes to actually take a moment and pause and reflect, even though, like, as you've described, the benefits of doing it and, how it actually impacts you as a leader to improve when, I need to run the business. I'm jumping from one meeting to the next. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. It's like, I don't feel like I have the time to be able to do that. And yet it seems from your experience, it's just so critical to your own growth as a leader, and the impact it has across the organization is just has a ripple effect.
There are two things that influence my thinking, and I've had many wise people. If I have any insight here, it's come from other people's ideas that have managed to permeate my thick skull. But I really like this. There's a book called An Everyone Culture. And they look at large organizations and they perform, but like they look at sort of they have a lens of a people first culture. And sort of the opening premise, they sort of ask the question, what if when you went to work, you didn't have to do two jobs? The job that's on your job description and the job of pretending to be who you think you need to be to fit into the social structures of the workplace and the professional structures. Because like most of us are literally doing two jobs. One is an actual job you get compensated for. The other is the play acting job of pretend to be the person who you need to be to function in that company. And that comes back to like Lencioni and his definition of politics. Politics is, can you say what you mean, or do you say what you think you need to have to say to get the thing done? It's like, it's that sort of almost duplicity, but like having to play act. And so that comes back to authenticity. Like, can you be an authentic person in the company? Can you show up and be like, I have an upset stomach today, and that may impact how I show up in this meeting, and like that kind of like embarrassing, we say vulnerability, but it's just the reality of who you are. And if you're not on a team where you can have that kind of conversation of like, I ate bad shrimp last night and I might need to turn my camera off, and you might need to forgive me if I, like these are real things. And if you have to pretend to not be that person all day, how much energy are you wasting? Like literally how much decision-making, generative energy, creative energy are you wasting? And if you're in a people services business, you need your A game all the time. And so if you can just shut off that play actor all day, then you just have so much more to give to the job and to get done it in 8 hours, and then go back to what we all like to do afterwards, which is sit around a flickering light telling each other stories. Like that's sort of what our species has done since the campfire days. And now we do it with iPads, but it is kind of the same thing. We hunt and we clean things and we raise children and we do all the work of the day, and then you want to sit around the fire, just be a human at night with people we care most about. So just being able to show up and be an authentic self, I think that's essential. And for me, that really kind of that frames sort of the entire job of building an effective culture, is a place where people are going to be who they actually are and be safe there, and still get their job done. And I think you can just outperform any company if you solve those problems.
That's phenomenal. I definitely think that we could have a part 2 with you, Paul, for sure.
I'll just bring all the books I read that are smarter than me.
Yeah, send us a list.
Do a library tour. Yeah.
Yes, fantastic. I think the subscribers would like to hear that as well. You have a lot of not just intellectual, but insightful things to say that has a combination of, business competency and then the human side of us, which is so important. I think it's really quite interesting. I guess that's where we geek out anyways. Final question for you, Paul. What are 3 words of inspiration that you would like the world to hear?
So I'll do 3 phrases. The first one is, you're good enough.
Yes.
You're good enough to do the things that you need to do. You have it within you. You may just need to adjust your expectations to fit your own self. Don't let the external world tell you what you need to do to be successful. You're already good enough to do what you're going to do. Because quite frankly, if you try to be something that you're not capable of, you're not likely to succeed. So, this isn't to say aim low, like be aspirational, aim high, but like tune your expectations to what you're going to achieve as an individual. And then from there, what your business is going to achieve to what you're actually capable of. And then surround yourself to accommodate, where you're not good. So first is you're good enough, because you will only ever achieve what you're capable of. And so, set that. But then where you feel you have a deficiency or where there's something wrong, you can't really fix yourself. You already are who you are. So surround yourself with people that can compensate for your backhand. It's doubles tennis, right? Like if you have a weak backhand, play with somebody who doesn't, find people around you, so there's sort of a know yourself theme, I think a wise person may have said that several millennia ago. So understand who you are, but compensate, work with people who can compensate for your weak backhand. If you're not great at strategic planning, hire someone who's great at strategic planning. You don't have to wear all that by yourself. So a team is always better than an individual when it comes to business. And when it comes to complex situations, many minds are better than one mind. So build people around you. And then finally, so take just self-care, especially these days. It's been a tough couple of years for all of us, globally. Here in North America, the political discourse, the polarization, the feeling like you're always one step away from stepping on a landmine conversationally with people. That's kind of a terrible way to go through the world, being afraid to tweet anything lest you tweet the wrong thing. It's been really hard. We're afraid of each other. We're angry at each other, and at that point, you got to rest. You got to plan for rest. So just take care of yourself. So you're good enough. Build your team and then take care of yourself, because you need that really positive, creative energy to solve the hard problems you're going to have to solve and to be the person you're going to need to be for the people who you surround yourself with. So for me, that's been my recipe. And that's kind of how I'm looking at 2022 for me.
That's phenomenal, Paul. Thank you so much for sharing your insights with us today. We really appreciate you.
This has been fun. I always like to hear myself talk, as my team knows. So I love doing these.
Noted. Good to know. And we also really appreciate, on behalf of our subscribers, your time today to share your insights. And for anybody that would like to learn more about Yellow Pencil, we're going to put your company link on the Elevate Business Podcast title page. Take good care.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Human Side of Business podcast. I'm glad you could join us. If you enjoyed today's episode and want to stay updated with our latest content, make sure to visit our website. The link can be found in the episode description, where you can subscribe to the podcast, sign up for our newsletter, and learn more about our whole person leadership services. Sounds interesting? Explore the Whole Person Leadership Cohort by Intuitive Performance, a unique program that offers unparalleled support to managers on every step of their leadership journey. Our program features evidence-based assessments, workbooks, group coaching, and interactive learning experiences to help you level up your leadership skills. Reach out today to apply to one of our upcoming cohorts. Until next time, take care and stay curious.